Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. First of all, I want to acknowledge that Jenny and her dad, Jerry, are in the gallery with us as we have this conversation. They are the impetus for this bill, and they have shepherded it through our sometimes challenging legislative process. House File 15 is a repeal of the voluntary relationship exception to rape. When I first heard about this, I was at coffee with Senator Hoffman, and Jenny's dad, Jerry, told us that his daughter had been raped by her husband, and that the prosecutor in Anoka County actually planned to charge him, and then discovered that in Minnesota, there's an exception that says if you're married, even if there's enough evidence to bring charges, you can't be charged with rape. And that began this journey with a very sick feeling in my stomach because I couldn't believe that Minnesota would be a place where that would happen. But I checked with our counsel, and it turns out we need to repeal this so that never again can someone rape their spouse or someone they're cohabitating with and a prosecutor actually have sufficient evidence to bring charges and then be stopped because of Minnesota statute 609.349. And so I want to thank my co-authors, Senator Bigham, Senator Housley, Senator Kent, and Senator Hoffman. I also want to thank Senator Limmer for carrying the funding of this bill and making sure this language moved forward. But most of all, I want to thank Jenny. Those of you who are in Judiciary Committee have heard some of this, and I'm not going to tell you her whole story. But she discovered video on her home computer of her husband raping her while she was unconscious. And their 4-year-old was in bed with her when he did this. He did this twice on tape. The level of disgust that she must have felt and the betrayal that she must have felt, and so she called the Anoka County Sheriff's detective, and a victim specialist reached out to her and formally charged her ex-husband with 1 count of felony criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree. And then that counselor, that victim specialist, had to call her back and say, we actually can't charge him because Minnesota has law in the books that states a person can't be charged with that crime if they are married at the time of the crime. I cannot imagine how she felt, how helpless she must have felt that a prosecutor was willing to do this. And there was nothing to be done. So they found some other ways to charge him, but certainly not the most just way to charge him. And so we bring this language to you, members, and I am certain because of Jenny's strength and the rightness of repealing this language that you will join me in supporting this repeal. And members, I have one small change I need to make. The effective date is July 1st. We delayed the effective date so that there could be no constitutional challenge, somebody saying they didn't know that this was actually a crime in Minnesota. And so I have the A51 amendment.
Senator Benson offers the A51 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Benson moves to amend House File Number 15, the unofficial engrossment as follows, page 1, line 7. This is the A51 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This changes the effective date from July 1st to June 15th. We believe that's sufficient time to avoid a constitutional challenge, but that the effective date would be as soon as possible. And so, members, I hope that I have sufficiently explained the need for this. I want to thank Jenny for her courage. There are not many people who can come to the legislature and tell a story that must be this difficult to relive. And so, Jenny, I thank you. And Jerry, I thank you for making sure we got through this And your courage is to be applauded, and your children should be very proud of you. And so, members, with that, I would ask for a green vote.
Discussion on the amendment. Senator Latz.
Mr. President, I support the underlying bill. I think it's a very important bill. I was actually quite surprised to learn that it wasn't already the law until it came before us here at the legislature, just like Senator Benson was surprised. I do have a concern about this proposed amendment, and it's a very simple concern. It's a matter of due process and notice. Most laws that have an impact on criminal prosecutions by default around here take effect August 1st. And that's quite simply because there needs to be enough time for the public to become aware that a new law is taking effect that can impact criminal consequences. That's been the standard in this legislative body for as long as I've been a legislator, and I'm sure it was long before that. It was a default. Senate Council just drafts it in to all the bills as August 1st. I know the original bill had an effective date the day following enactment, which, while we would all like to be able to see it take effect as soon as possible, caused all sorts of constitutional questions, and Senate Council was very concerned about that and felt that perhaps the July 1st date would be more appropriate, and that's the way it was amended. I'm not quite sure why the argument here is over 2 weeks. If I've been drafting the bill and to be most comfortable from a due process standpoint, I think it ought to be August 1st. I would hate to see the next prosecution that happens, if it happens in the window or for an act that occurs in a window when there's some doubt about the constitutionality of it, that prosecution gets thrown out because we didn't quite get it right here and provide proper due process and notice. So while I'm prepared to live with the July 1 date because I think we'd probably be okay there, although I think there's even some risk there. I think we kind of ramp up the risk of this being found unconstitutional, at least as it applies to any particular prosecution, if we move the date ahead to June 15th or any other date. So I actually would encourage members, or actually I'd encourage Senator Benson to withdraw the amendment so that we don't create this constitutional risk with regard to any future prosecution. And perhaps we can handle it that way, but if she's not willing to do that, I'd encourage members to vote no on the amendment.
Further discussion on the amendment. Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really do not wish to create controversy around this bill. I was trying to find a midpoint between enactment and the traditional deadline that would still prevent a constitutional challenge. I will withdraw the A51 and we can revert to the original language. And
Senator Benson withdraws the A51 amendment to the bill. Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the work that it takes to change criminal statutes. So Senator Latz, I appreciate your advice. And I had notified the House that we were making this change, but if it's going to slow things down, I would just leave it at July 1st and hope that the House will accept the July 1st language. And with that, Mr. President, I just renew my praise for Jenny's courage and ask for a green vote.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Benson. When we had coffee with Jenny Teeson, it was one of those aha moments, Mr. President, that you got to be kidding me, this doesn't exist already in law. And so that was a couple of years ago. And so as Jenny and Jerry, this is for you, for your hard work, for getting us to see what's right to do on behalf of people. And so this has been a bipartisan effort, and let's just do the right thing for people, because that's what we're here to do, is to do the right thing for people. So thank you, Senator Benson. Thank you, Senator Bingham. Thank you for those that have worked throughout on this, and my partner over in the House, in the other body, Representative Stevenson. So thank you, Mr. President. And again, this is for you, Jerry and Jenny.
Further discussion on House File 15. Senator Bingham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, victims of rape deserve justice. There's no varying outcomes of rape depending on who commits this act of violence. The victims suffer the same trauma. And holding violators accountable, no matter their legal relationship to the victim, is exactly what this bill does. Members, this bill is justice for victims of rape long overdue in the state of Minnesota. I want to thank Senator Benson for handling this bill through the legislative process. And I want to thank Jenny for her advocacy, for her strength. She had to relive the trauma every time she shared her story. Her voice speaks loudly for those women who deserve justice. Let's do the right thing. Let's right this wrong. Thank you, members.
Members, any further discussion on House File 15? See no further discussion, the Secretary will give House File 15 its third reading.
Where's the House file? House File number 15, a bill for an act relating to public safety, eliminating the voluntary relationship defense for criminal sexual conduct crimes.
Third reading. Members, any final discussion on House File 15? Seeing no further discussion, we're on final passage of House File 15. The Secretary will take the roll. All senators having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 66 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and is titled agreed to.